Hi, welcome to episode 72 of the American Tributaries podcast, where to get out of the bubbles we've all been living in, we're using modern technology to explore the various currents of people in our great country, kind of like a 21st century Lewis and Clark journey. I'm your host, Michael Whidden, here from Brooklyn, New York, and thank you for joining me in this exploration of America. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Wanda Battle. Wanda lives about 890 miles southwest of me in Montgomery, Alabama, where she founded a company called Legendary Tours, which leads historical tours of her beloved city, as well as a bunch of other things. So, Wanda, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you doing? And could you share a bit of your story?
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me into this conversation with you tonight, Michael. My story, I was born here in Montgomery, Alabama, September 11th, 1956. So I'm a baby boomer. I am I'm one of those who came up through the civil rights movement here in Montgomery. Both my parents on my dad's side of the family and my mother's side both worked in the Montgomery bus boycott and trained us and brought us up through the 1960s civil rights movement. And with that being said, I call myself a child of freedom.
Yeah.
And my family, my dad and his two brothers owned four businesses here in Montgomery during the bus boycott. They owned a funeral home, a shoe shine, barbershop, and taxi service called Good Service Taxi. Good Service Shoe Shine, Good Service Barbershop. And the barbershop is now a full service salon, and it's the only surviving business of the four.
Mhm.
Howard and Howard's Funeral Home was one of those that were part of the carpool during the Montgomery bus boycott, because if you own cars or had a fleet, such as with a funeral home, you were able to use them to transport more people. And so I have always appreciated the fact that my family were actively involved. We were trained as children, not only by parents who I just love dearly and thank them for their training and protection, but it was a community effort because, Michael, here in Montgomery, there was Black Montgomery and there was White Montgomery. So we very rarely went on the white side of town for anything, and they rarely came on our side of town, other than having a few businesses here and there. But we had many Black owned businesses here in this community during the 1950s and 60s. And it was just a blessing and a light for us children to watch African American people who were against the odds, so to speak, here in Montgomery, because it was just a segregated city. To have not only our parents but the community to protect us from the dangers, from many of them, but also to train us and help us to understand and appreciate the contributions of our African American people and then the culture that we were living under in that segregated system here at the time. And so during the 1960s Civil Rights Selma to Montgomery March, I was about, I guess, 8 years of age by that time. And there were eight children of us in my family. But my two older sisters were old enough, they were like 15 and 16 years of age. They were student organizers out of St. Jude Catholic High School, which was where they attended. My family, my mother and father believed in a Catholic education. But they also organized high school students from the other two Black schools, Booker T. Washington and Carver High School, that were here. And on that day, the morning of March 25th, um, when the march had arrived to Montgomery the day before on the 24th and held that Stars for Freedom concert the night of March 24th, making the city of St. Jude the campsite for that rally and concert, as well as a resting space for the marchers. And so my sisters organized so that the students on the morning of March 25th would walk out of school and walk that last leg to the Alabama state capitol. What was that march about? It was about voting rights. And so I am very honored, as I was trained and watched it modeled before me, to advocate for human rights and social justice. And it has never left me. In 1968, when Dr. King was killed, April 4th, 1968, urban renewal came through our community, our Black community on the west side of Montgomery here, and they leveled our homes and businesses that were numerous. And you should see what it looks like now. It looks dilapidated. Many of the places, many of the people who live there now are not homeowners, you know, and so it has left it in a fallout.
Yeah.
But it came in to build I-65 and I-85, so it runs through that community now that I still call my Montgomery.
Hmm.
But with that having been said, um, I continue to work even now to um, continue that work of advocacy, to train through this platform I have been given in conducting tours, because I now own Legendary Tours um, here in the city. I started off in 2014 as a tour guide at Dexter Avenue King Memorial Baptist Church, where the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King pastored. Yes, so he was the 20th pastor out of 28.
Wow.
And just a young man, Michael, and
Yeah.
everybody. And so I,
So do you remember hearing him preach?
yeah, well, the only way I've heard him preach is via YouTube
uh,
and online sites. I
uh,
never had an opportunity to meet him. My
oh,
mother did, and my two older sisters did, because they worked at the Montgomery Improvement Association office.
hmm.
But I never got to see him. But I feel like I do. I feel like I know him so well, because much of my work now is focused on the legacy of the body of work and the life he lived, he and Mrs. Coretta Scott King. And I say them together because they were partners in good trouble. You know, John Lewis made that
Yeah,
statement,
yeah,
like, we're getting into good trouble.
yeah. What do you? Is there? I guess, and why do you think, or from what your understanding of history, why did the civil rights movement happen when it did in like the 1950s? In your mind, I have my own like thoughts
Oh,
on this,
that's
but
a
I'm wondering
good question.
like why 50s? Why not 40s? Why not the 30s? Why not the 70s?
I think that it was divinely ordered, Michael, when I look at the fact that everything to, as I look at it, everything was in the right place at the right time with the right people.
Hmm.
So here we are. Slavery was abolished 1865, right? The Emancipation Proclamation was signed 1863, right?
Hmm.
So here we fast forward to 1955. And in between that time, okay, yes, Black people were freed, quote unquote, 1985 with the 13th Amendment. But then we go right back into the Jim Crow laws during Reconstruction. And yes, a few Black people, Black men were given positions as legislators in the state, for a season. But by the turn of the century, Jim Crow laws kicked in and everything was separate.
Hmm.
And it
Right.
remained that way until Mrs. Rosa Parks sat on the bus on December 1st, 1955, and refused to give up her seat. Yes, all of the people on the west side of town had been living under those segregated laws and being called boys and gals and get up, make it light on yourselves, move on to the back, putting your 10 cent in the till and having to get off of the bus, only to have the bus driver, all of them were white at the time, having them to pull off, and you had paid your fare. And so it wasn't until Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. And the people of my community at that time, they agreed because they had experienced the injustices. And so it was like, okay, Mrs. Parks has been arrested. Okay, we're not that afraid. All
Hmm.
of us are going to join together and we're going to take a stand. And the night of December 5th, 1955, which was the Monday of Mrs. Parks' hearing that morning, the one-day bus boycott took place that morning. And that afternoon, Montgomery Improvement Association is organized and Dr. King is elected the first president. And at 7 o'clock p.m. that night, Holt Street Baptist Church hosts the first mass meeting where Dr. King delivers his first awesome delivery of speech to the people to arouse them. And the people that night took a vote that they wanted to continue the bus boycott. And it continued for another 381 days. So that was the culminating factor, Mrs. Parks's arrest.
Now, were people, and when you talk to your parents about their experience, was there a sense of fear with what they're doing, or is there a sense of like resolve or inevitability, like we have to do this, so there were fear never factored in? Like what's the feelings of you? Because in retrospect, we all know how it ended, and it ended right, but I would imagine that could have been a very, I mean, it must have been could have been very terrifying to like say, okay, we're going to try to change the system. We don't know how. We don't know if we're going to succeed, but we got to try. So were
Yes,
people scared?
I think there was some fear, but because the way everything unfolds, people had lived with segregation, you know, since I'm going to say they lived with segregation since slavery had been abolished in 1865. Really. But I
Mm,
think because Black people understood there was a level of survival that was involved. So, because many of the Black women were domestics working in the white homes, the white women's homes, and many of the Black men were working for their husbands, for the white business owners. So, I believe that there was this measure of shrewdness that had to be adhered to, that pointed to survival. And the fact that we were isolated, and I use that term, but that we were segregated on the west side of Montgomery. On one hand, that was a protection, So therefore, I watched our community, your pastors, your teachers, the preachers, the mechanics, the business owners, everybody lived next door to each other. We knew one another. Yeah. And so it made for a very close knit community. And that's another thing. That's why the Montgomery bus boycott was so successful, because the pastors all knew one another. And when I was a kid growing up during that 50s, 60s time period, the pastors would program even at their churches so that they wouldn't conflict with each other. For
wow.
instance, if they had planned a tea or something special program, they always planned it so that they could support one another.
Hmm.
And because of that, when Dr. King was uh, elected, the process of him being elected president of the Montgomery Improvement Association and becoming the spokesperson for the Montgomery bus boycott, they were friends. It was like there was not a competition really, but I'm not going to say that was with everybody.
Hmm.
But I'm just saying, in general, it was because the pastors all had voice in the community. And
Hmm.
when they spoke to their congregations, we followed them.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it was a protection for us, but there was some fear. But many of the advocates, like Reverend Solomon Snowden Say, who was the pastor of Mount Zion AME Zion Church that my whole family attended, long before Dr. King came, he was telling the congregation to stop, you know, uh, uh, being afraid, and to uh, not put up with the humiliations of segregation. Yeah, that they had worth, that we had self worth, and so there were many voices among the pastorate who were, advocates and activists
Hmm.
even early on, to include Vernon Johns, who was at Dexter Church from 1947 to 1952.
Hmm.
And if you read his story, read Parting the Waters by Taylor Branch. Oh, Taylor Branch uses that first chapter to give you a good picture of who Reverend Vernon Johns was. And he was definitely an advocate and activist.
Hmm. Well, my like when I listen to the like I have the dream speech, and I can't say I've read like lots of Dr. King's like writings, but my perception of that, and then how, and just his whole, like, I was a history major in college, so like at least having whatever I read about it, it seemed that like the spirit of the movement was about maybe like the, I guess one maybe, and let me know if how wrong this is or right, but more about kind of imbuing the community to be like, you have the right to stand equal with people, and maybe, I guess, girding them for that confrontation of trying to change the system. But what I find in like the "I Have the Dream" speech is that if you listen to it, there seems to me, at least, to be this almost there's a love there for the American principles. It's not like a challenge, like we're going to burn this down because this country sucks. It's more like we love the principles. We want to be a part of this.
Absolutely.
So, is that how
Dr.
you would describe what was happening in spirit?
Yes, Dr. King, when he began to lead the Montgomery bus boycott, he had a clear vision of the method. He had studied Mahatma Gandhi's method of direct action, of nonviolence, and he believed in that method. He believed that love was more powerful than hate. And so from the very beginning, he was advocating love and nonviolence. In the marches, they were training everybody who marched, whether you were white or black or Chinese or whatever. Those who came to train to participate in the marches and protests, they were trained to neither verbally nor physically fight back, because
Mm-hmm.
the natural response of most of us,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
oh yes, if we're being spat on and beaten, oh,
Yeah.
some violent tendency is always the first response. But Dr. King always insisted on nonviolence.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, um, we as a people followed that mandate. Yeah, we found, and because most of us were Christian based people, and see, in the black community, as they say, we live in the black belt, but most of us believed in the principles of love and forgiveness and compassion and mercy. So when Dr. King said, "You are my white brothers and my white sisters," and even after the parsonage was bombed January 30th, 1956, he's out on the porch telling the people, the black people who had come, who were angry that the Ku Klux Klan were attempting to take his life and his family's life. And he says, "No, we're going to continue to meet hate with love. Put down your weapons of war and quietly go home." And because he pressed that, and that was a complete mandate, foundation of the nonviolent movement, yes, that was very important, and we adhere to it.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you live your entire life in Montgomery, or did you ever move away?
We moved away after Dr. King was killed in April of 1968. Urban renewal came through the city. They leveled our properties and businesses, as I was mentioning. And my mother took her money and us 8 children, or those of us who were still left at home, and we moved to Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And I, to this day, am so thankful she made that decision, Michael, because it set the course of where my life was to go. And I'm so grateful as I'm looking back now. Yeah, it's been a blessed life. Yeah, I've had some challenges,
Mm-hmm.
have I? But
and
I'm thankful for where I am.
and then when did you end up going back to Montgomery?
We came back. I always tell my tourists, I say my third husband brought me back home in
Oh
1995.
wow, okay, wow, so almost 20 years.
Yes, yes. Something like 25 now. It's been
Wow.
a good little while now that I've come back home, and it was a perfect time and season. When we drove away in 1968, I had no idea I would ever return. I was waving out of the back window like,
Mm,
"See you, Montgomery." But
wow.
you never know, and you never say never, because for such a time as this, here I am, and I'm so happy to be a voice for this nonviolent movement of love here.
Now, from the, I guess, like from the news perspective, you'll hear a lot about like the, shenanigans with like voting rights, and you hear about the instances of like racism, and you don't really hear about anything else. So, like from like the, if you didn't really dig too deep into things, from like somebody who's lived in New York for in the Northeast for most of his life, for me, it would seem like, well, why would you want to continue living in a place with such a hostile history to anybody that looked like you. So what's the roots of your affection to want to stay there?
Oh, I must say the appreciation that I have for all of those who helped us get here.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because when I watched um, the success of the Montgomery bus boycott, which changed the ability for all Alabamians to ride the buses here, even interstate, you know, um, it brought about change. And I often talk to my visitors when we're talking, and I share that when there's unity of a community, change is possible. When we unite, and I say that to anybody in any type of movement, if you unite with one accord for the right reason, you are going to succeed. And so that you were talking earlier about the hope, that's a hope here in Montgomery that in the work that I do, that we are all working together as partners to change the narrative of hatred
Mm-hmm.
to a narrative of um, educating ourselves so that we can appreciate and come to a table of compassion with one another. Because ultimately, we're just human beings.
Yeah.
Peel this down, we look creepy, and we're all just human beings.
Yeah, we're all kind of weird looking. We all got these like five things off of our hands.
Yeah. And I had a gentleman on one of my tours too who explained, he was a geneticist, and he explained that there is nothing in the genetic makeup of blood that identifies any person by an ethnicity, only by blood type.
Hmm.
And he was helping us to understand that even um, 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 in our physical understanding of the body, that we're just one people.
Yeah,
We're just
yeah,
human beings.
and we need each other. And I had to when I was in law school, I wrote this law review article, and I was trying to articulate I guess a substantive reason to be if to I guess to advocate for equal rights, but not one that was about other people, but like more to kind of appeal to the selfish reasons. Like, why should I want equality for other people, right? Like, it's a nice idea, but what's in it? Because everybody's kind of selfish. No matter what, people are kind of selfish. So what's in it for me to make sure other people have more equal opportunity? And the way I saw it is like you want the best possible doctor taking care of your child. You don't want it to be the best possible white doctor or black doctor. You want the best doctor, and you want that talent within the community, within the country, to rise to the top. You want the people who feel motivated to do the best they can. And to me, that is the thrust of the reason why, as a society, a healthy society is always striving to have an equal opportunity for people to realize their full potential.
That's true, Michael, because all of us need one another.
Yeah.
As we were talking earlier about the fires in Hawaii right now. I'm telling you, everybody is in need of, services now, who are out of doors, who are needing help to put their lives back together again. When these hurricanes and storms come through and level communities, it affects everybody.
Yeah.
Even when George Floyd was murdered, all people around the world looked at that murder, and it affected everybody around the world.
Yeah.
So we're all tied to each other, whether
Yeah.
we want to be or not.
Yeah. So when I picture Alabama, I picture I take the humidity and the heat of New York, and I assume it's just worse. What is the summer like in Alabama
It is
where you are?
extremely hot here right now.
Uh,
I said, Lord, I can't. I can't go to the other place when I transition, because I'm telling you, I say I can't take more heat than this.
uh,
But it has been extremely hot. It's been in the upper 90s, and with the heat index, it's like in the hundreds.
oh,
And so we are really having to watch how much time we spend outside,
mhm,
making sure we hydrate. And those who are on tours with me, I make sure I keep, beverages that will allow us to hydrate while we're outside for those brief periods of time, because I don't try to walk long distances or keep people out in the sun very long, or even myself. but it is very hot here right now.
Wow.
Yes. And with it being in the South, I'm sure it's a little different from up north, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but the climate has changed so drastically in so many parts of our country. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
hotter. You feel like it's hotter now than it has been in the past?
absolutely. It
Really?
absolutely is. Yes. Yeah. I'm having to put my shades on the glass of the windshield of my car to try to reduce some of that heat
Hmm.
when I enter. I'm having to run the air conditioner more often, than I would have normally. But
Hmm.
it's just so hot because even I can feel the heat coming in through the walls if I don't have the air conditioner on. I
Wow.
feel the intensity of the heat here in my house. So I have to really run it more often. So it's very hot here in the South right now.
Uh-huh.
And to add to it, it's humid.
Hmm. So what is a perfect day for you? So tours aside and heat aside, what's a perfect day for you in your hometown?
Oh my goodness. I have so many loves of things to do. I love I love going out to plays, so I go out to the Shakespeare Festival to see plays. I love um, museums. So that's why the work that I do visiting museums is always so cool because I love learning. Here in Montgomery, we just opened our Whitewater Park, and I am going to set a date, hopefully this month, to go rafting because I've never done that because I like the excitement of it. Now, the kayaking looks a little because you're in there by yourself and you really have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But in the raft, you have a few more people to help you kind of balance.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take that adventure too. But I'm looking forward to that. And um, I love movies. I love documentaries. So when I was talking about binging Netflix, oh, I love watching movies on Netflix.
Yeah. What was like a favorite movie you've seen in the past?
Some of the favorites I watched most recently. Let me see, Bridgerton. I watched. What was that one I watched just the other day? Oh my goodness. I can't ever remember certain names. But some of the documentaries that I watched too were like 13th, Ava DuVernay talking about mass incarceration.
Mhm.
Um, I love various series of shows that are on Netflix. Many of them are really, really pretty good.
Mhm.
And so when I find something I like, I'm one of those people who just stick to it. I'll stay up all night
Oh, you're one of those
watching.
binge watchers.
I hate to go to bed if I haven't finished it. So
Oh
I'm one of those people. But I love stories. I love how writers tell stories of us,
Mhm.
of people and circumstances that we find ourselves. So,
Yeah. Do you
and
have
I
art?
watched Pretty Woman the other night too for the 100th time.
Oh, so you like that?
Oh, I do. I do love Richard Gere and Julia Roberts.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like Shawshank Redemption is probably that for me.
Oh,
I
that's a
like that.
great film. I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I like that. I like Moneyball too with Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. There's something the way he tries to rethink baseball, and I get into that drama because I think it's the hardest thing to try to do something different. Just like Dr. King was doing, with the civil rights movement. It's in retrospect, it's always easy to be like, oh, of course he did that or whatever. But when they're doing it, it's there's no guarantee. It could fall flat on its face. You don't know you're
That's
going to be a historical figure until you probably die.
Yes, yes. Another one I watched on Netflix was Doubting Thomas.
Uh-huh.
And it's a story. It's so cool. I hope many of you will go watch it. But it's a white couple, a young white couple who delivers a black baby.
Oh.
Yeah, an African American looking baby.
Uh-huh.
And the dynamic of everybody's position of trying to figure out how did this baby come out dark
And
skinned like this?
wow.
It's a wonderful, I think it just makes all of us think. inwardly how we would have felt had we been either the wife or the husband,
Mm,
or the mother and father of the wife. And I'm not going to tell the plot of it,
yeah,
but
please don't.
it is very interesting, and it's called Doubting Thomas.
Doubting Thomas. Okay. Well, my wife and I don't get to watch that much television. I always blame our kids, but it might just be our mismanagement of our lives to not have enough time. But we have a growing list of TV shows and movies we have to watch when they all go away to
Yes.
college in 10 years.
Oh my, you have a while there.
Yeah, not quite that long, but
Keep
yeah.
hope alive.
Nah, nah. Life's a whirlwind, so it's not it's fine. Um, so have you ever come up to to New York?
I have. I love New York.
Yeah.
I was there last September.
Uh-huh.
My sister Ruby and I travel every year together.
Mm-hmm.
And when we came back from Europe, we flew into New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love Times Square. And we have a dear friend who vends right at the entrance there to NBC.
Mm-hmm.
Is it ABC? The Today Show?
ABC is in Times
ABC?
Square. NBC is at Rockefeller Center.
Yeah, so he's our dear friend, and
Uh,
he sells all type of wonderful paraphernalia, I merchandise, I should say.
uh, uh,
And of course, New York. Everything on the street is possible, and I think
yeah,
we saw it too.
yeah. Legal and illegal things beyond
Yes,
your imagination. No, it's
but we went to see Death of a Salesman, and
uh,
it was excellent. Oh my goodness!
really.
Oh, we enjoyed that.
That's great. It's a, I don't, do you find, one of the reasons why I've done this podcast is I think that we all not only do we form opinions, but we form very firm, inflexible opinions about other areas based on the very limited media that we get. Whether or not you're watching Fox or MSNBC, the news media's incentive is to keep you watching, is to sell advertising.
Yes.
That's why they do it. So they've got to show you the extremes. And one of the things that I've always wondered, if I would ask a journalist, is why is it that journalism, or serious journalism, has to be about the negative things? I think it's important to, as a society, to be aware of the negative things, but I think if you go too far, then you lose sight of why you're working to fix things. And I think that, to me, is, this podcast isn't meant to be political, but I think when you look at, when I think about a lot of the dialogue or the spirit, or sometimes on the left side of the political sphere, is there's a lot of kind of getting almost too upset with the country, to where it almost beats you down. So it's like you don't even want to fix it. And I think, to me, there's that balance of like loving the country, but and there's a quote that I heard once where it's like, you don't want to be an uncritical lover, nor you want to be a loveless critic. You want to be kind of warring between both of those.
I totally get what you're saying, and I really agree with you. There are seasons when I don't watch the news at all. I have to, that's my way of controlling, and not just controlling, but managing my own emotions and my own thoughts about what's happening in our country. And so I take those seasons where I just tune it all out. But because of the work that I am doing every day. And I'm so grateful and privileged to have an opportunity to engage with people from around the world, to have these tough conversations. I must continue to educate myself with both sides. So I
Mm-hmm.
go over and I watch Fox News to hear what they're talking about and what they're saying today. And I watch MSNBC and CNN, and the regular local news to see what's really happening so that I can keep myself educated and in my conversations with people.
Yeah. Now, do you think that, from say, like in New York, and in I think there is, what I wonder is, like, is there a next stage of with the civil rights movement that requires different strategies and tactics. Um, and there's two things that come to mind. Is that one? And I know that's not everywhere, but like even like when we went down to like South Carolina or like in other places where in my mind I'm expecting that there's still some kind of like you know like like some form of segregation that's like systemic more than like legal. I've seen many like mixed couples that out and about, like it's a non-issue. I myself, my wife is Taiwanese. We've been all over. Never felt like there was ever any issue. In New York, you see a lot of mixed couples. My son, one of his best friends, his father's black, his mother's white. So what I wonder is there a point where like things have to be dealt with in a different way? And the other thing that comes to mind is I was reading this article about like NBA coaches, and they were saying like there aren't enough, certainly not enough black NBA coaches. But the other part of it is that if you to be a black NBA coach, you had to have been a professional basketball player. But to be a white NBA coach, you don't have to go through that. You can work your way up from water boy. So there's like I guess there's still problems. It's better than what it was. I mean, this is just my perception, but there's like different problems now. It's not quite as overt, but it's still there. And then it's also, but there is also seems to me to be there should be signs that they're better, because all those couples I saw like when I was in South Carolina 2 generations ago, they could have been arrested. I could have been
Yeah.
arrested. So, I mean, what is your feelings on that? And do you feel like things have at least changed for the better compared to what your parents saw when they were growing up?
Okay, let me say this. Mrs. Coretta Scott King was as brilliant as her husband was. And she has a statement that says, struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. With that, what she's saying is that there's no destination to human rights, social justice, and civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
It's just every season of it, every generation of it. We're all fighting the causes for humanity, for everyone. And those causes, I can just say, the season of the Montgomery bus boycott here, we were living all together on one side of town. Where see now, hey, many black people live over in Wind Lakes and on the east side of town who can afford those, $250,000 homes over there. And there are many more African Americans who are educated, who have PhDs and are professors on university campuses, shaping the minds of all children, all students from around the world. And so I think that we are in a new season. I think we are in a renaissance. But this renaissance comes with a cost, like each season comes with a cost. Because when you look at all of the human rights issues that we are fighting right now, we're fighting for voting rights. You would think that would already be, a simple matter. But here we are fighting to serve water in a line, waiting to vote. We're fighting the battle of voter suppression. We're fighting the battles for health care. We're fighting the battles for educating our children so that monies go into our schools to help improve these schools that really need the services. We're fighting all of these different battles. Now we're here in Alabama, the banning of books, Florida, Texas, it's just so many human rights issues that are on the table. But guess what? We're just in that season where we're up at bat,
Mm-hmm.
and it's up to you and me and each one of us now to, in those places where we are, keep brightening those places, keep fighting for our children, keep working in the schools, keep advocating what is true for all people. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
what's compassionate, trying to help to improve the communities, putting monies to that so that now the west side of Montgomery that looks dilapidated, will get the funding. And so our first African American mayor is in place now, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
And he was voted in November 2022. And I mean 2020. That's right, because he was already in place when George Floyd was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying that we are all in place for such a time as this, and the work continues. Now,
Yeah.
many things have changed, but we still must continue the work.
Yeah. Um, what I guess you'd mentioned, I guess your spiritual connection to the struggle for the civil rights movement, the continuation of it. But I guess what is it that you say? Let's say, like, what is it that you love about the life in Alabama? Like, and I ask this more like as an educational thing, like, because, like, I think in a lot of respects, like, for people who might come to New York, they might look at New Yorkers and be like, why do you choose to live like this? Like, why in God's name do you like this vibe? And like, the one thing I'd say is most New Yorkers don't go where the tourists are because it's too crazy. Like, if you're coming to New York City and you're like, the Midtown is insane, why would people want to live here? We don't. We don't. But it still is kind of a crazy, like, it's a crazy place. But like, what I'd say is, like, for me, and I think I could say, like, just in general, people who stay in New York the the variation. They like being able to have so many different options for food. They like being able to like discover new neighborhoods. They like discover their own neighborhood over again, and that stimulation, maybe we have some issue with us, I don't know, but that stimulation is something that, like, we all, I think, people in general like. And we sacrifice having big homes, we sacrifice having lawns to be able to be in the middle of this. And I find that I like, from like a professional perspective, or a friend perspective, the ability to be able to have, like, there's 8 million people within an hour, like, subway ride, and you can meet almost anyone for a cup of coffee, and you can bump into literally almost anyone. Like, Daniel Craig, James Bond, lives like 500 feet away from me. Matt Damon lives
My,
like a half mile away from me in our neighborhood in Brooklyn. I mean, not that we're going to run into them, but you never know what you're going to run into or who you're going to run into. It also could be the other way, but that's kind of part of the excitement. So that's, to
yeah.
me, is why I love New York. But why do you love, Montgomery and
And I'm
Alabama?
going to say this, Michael, you believe it or not, it may be the flip side of that same coin.
Uh,
I love Montgomery and Alabama in the South because the space that we live in, for instance, you can have an acre of land around your house here.
mm,
And there's more space to build here, and it's laid back. It's not as congested and hustle bustle. People come to Montgomery, Michael, and they're, well, why is it so quiet? And I'm talking about downtown. It's not, it's nowhere congested like New York City.
yeah,
But I love when I'm in New York for that very reason. But when
yeah,
I come home, it's like it's quiet, it's peaceful, it's serene. And, it's just another atmosphere. And believe it or not, we are attracting many people from New York and northern states who are coming to the South, who are coming to Montgomery, who are moving here. And they're finding their place because the creativity that they had in New York, they're bringing it here to our city. The gentleman who teaches my classic film class, I call him Sir John Martello.
mm,
He's a producer, actor, and writer from New York, from Manhattan.
mm,
And he now teaches our class here. And he's about to do a series of films for our Capri Community Film Society. The Capri Theater is like a community theater, and we play all type of, kind of nostalgic foreign movies that you won't see on the main screen. And so
mm.
we're very grateful for all of those who are coming, bringing their talents here now to the South to add some more of that culture to this Southern flavor. We still love fried chicken, macaroni, cheese, cornbread. So they come for that too. And I love that about the South. And
you,
sweet tea.
You anticipated my next question. I was going to ask what kind of food you like.
Oh, I love all of, you know something? I love diverse food because at 66 years of age now,
Oh,
you
stop! We
become
don't have
more.
any lying on this podcast.
I do. I enjoy all type of foods. Now, the only foods that I definitely choose not to eat are chitlins, pig ears, and pigtails. I have not. I don't particularly care for lox.
Oh,
Yeah, I can't say. My sister Ruby loves it, but I love ceviche.
mm,
Yeah. But there's something, you know how you have these little idiosyncrasies about things. But all in all, I enjoy all types of food. I love the sushi that has I guess, the rice and avocado.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really good to me with the ginger sauce. And I love Indian food. So I'm engaging my palate. I'll say it that way. I'm engaging my palate to appreciate food of many cultures
Mhm.
because I love traveling and I love the adventure of experiencing how other people eat. You take the same ingredients and you season them this way or roll them that way or whatever, and it creates something totally unique.
Yeah,
And that's fascinating to me.
yeah. It's a great way to connect. I think like when dining with somebody, you're showing respect to their family history, you're showing respect to their cultural history, their regional history, and you learn about them. And it's a great talking point to like learn about the food, which I
Yes.
guess is what I was asking. So, um, sweet tea, like, to like, are there different ways to make sweet tea, or is it all kind of the same no matter where you are?
There's a base to sweet tea, but everybody's sweet tea is different depending on how much sugar you put in it and then what you add to it.
Hmm.
hmm Because you can add many different things. Some, like we're used to lemon being added to tea, sweet tea. But then when you put all of these other flavorings of pineapple and orange juice, and it creates other different types of drinks. But tea is a base for so many wonderful southern drinks. Long Island iced tea. I think I think tea is somewhere in there. It may
Yeah.
not be. That may not even be southern. Do you know?
Yeah, I think that might be Long Island. That's my home area.
Is any sweet tea in that? You think?
I don't. It's. I think there's definitely a difference between like the Northeast, the version of iced tea that I've always thought, and then when you get sweet tea, there's more sweetness and it's a little bit thicker. And I feel
Oh,
like Northeastern like iced tea that you get like at the deli or the grocery store is more kind of like zingy, is more like there's more lemon to it, and it's a little higher toned. I don't know if that makes any sense, but there's definitely a difference. Like sweet tea is like satisfying, and it does go perfect with
yes.
like fried chicken.
Yes, it does. That and lemonade. And now, another thing that's very popular. Have you heard of an Arnold Palmer, which is
Yes,
half tea, half lemonade? Is
yeah,
that on popular on the menus in New York?
I've seen that. I've seen that in the stores. Yeah, Arnold Palmer.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's
why
very
not?
popular here in the South.
Is that right? So what do you do? So what do you do with your days off?
Oh, I love shopping.
Hmm.
So I like taking a little drive, like up to Clanton to Peach Park to get ice cream and their peach pies.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I like doing things that are a little different. I like when it's not really hot outside. I used to really enjoy just going in the park and just sitting,
Hmm.
just chilling, walking a little bit. Like I say, I love going to museums, but on many off days right now,
Hmm.
when I have completed my work, I'm binging Netflix and sound asleep. I'm catching up on my
Yeah.
rest.
Well, I'm sure leading tours must be pretty exhausting physically.
It does, but you know something for me because it's so fulfilling. it's like I wake up excited every time. I've been touring now for 9 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it hasn't gotten old.
Mm-hmm.
Every tour, every person I meet, what we would have shared on the tour is so wonderful and cool. And I love the engagement with people. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just real. It's not trying to be so business like, sharing some history.
Yeah.
No, it's like us having a conversation like, sisters and brothers. And it's learning about their lives every day.
Mm-hmm.
Because see, with me and with my company, the message of my company is be love, be light every day. Because love is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's just who you are for real every day.
Yeah.
And so that's even in my work. I work with that. It's like we're off on some little adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, let's hop in my car and let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't feel exhausted. But you know how it goes once you have completed a full day and you get home and you just sit. And there's something in the brain that says, okay, everything's done. Okay, bring it down. And then it's like, okay, and that's the part you're referencing. That's when I realized, okay, it's time to rest.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, the one thing as I've been like for American tributaries is for me it's part of a larger effort to try to get kids from the Northeast to travel domestically within the country, and I chose South Carolina as our first destination because I figure it's far enough away to be culturally, historically, geographically very different, but still close enough for us to get there within a day. But when I've been organizing like an itinerary, what I've tried to be mindful of is to try to explore the full breadth of South Carolina. In other words, like at least for me, I feel like it's important to like understand the history and the oppression that had happened and visit. There's I forget the name of the plantation offhand, but there's one that gives the story from really truly the people who were enslaved, their point of view. It's not a
Yes.
romanticized version. You go to the museums, you'll see you'll see discussions about what's happened, but I want them also to kind of see, I guess, the progress and understand the state as much as we can, like the whole breadth of it as much as possible. Like I chose, like, let's go take them to an army base because I was like, the military is an important presence in South Carolina. We went to see stock car racing because I was like, this is something people like to do. So if I was thinking of like going to Alabama, I feel like a lot of like what the tours that I've heard of for schools when they go down there, they'll look at the civil rights movement, they'll look at what slavery is doing to people, but they don't necessarily look at other parts of Alabama just to kind of put it in the context of, like, I guess the good
What's
things.
fun
One,
about it?
yeah, like the I guess like the good things of like the communities that are there, and I don't know, things like college sports. Like as a Northeasterner, college sports does not do it for me, but from anybody I talk to from down south, it's like your state school is like, you live, a lot of people like they live and die with their state school. That's a part of the culture I don't understand. So what else about Alabama should like I understand as a Northeasterner that I might not understand? I might not know. Like, what else? Yeah, teach me. We got a couple minutes left.
Okay, so two things. When visitors come, and most of them that I am engaging with that are travelers, they are coming here specifically because they want to see specific things.
Uh-huh.
Now, you have a few people who are just on the road, whatever I come across, it's an adventure and it's all good. But the
Mm-hmm.
majority of the travelers come to, especially Montgomery, for the
Mm-hmm.
civil rights history.
Mm-hmm.
And so they want to experience what the atmosphere is here. They want
Mm-hmm.
to see. And along with that, what I'm doing is engaging them with what the city has to offer, like the Biscuits baseball game.
Oh,
When
cool.
during the season, yeah, we pass by the stadium and I tell them all about it. And hopefully I invite them to attend a game.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the Whitewater Park I was talking about that has opened, I invite them to go there. And you don't even have to raft or kayak. You can just go and eat at the restaurant there because the
Hmm.
food is excellent. I've tried it
Hmm.
out already.
Uh,
So it's just a great scene to just chill.
hmm.
And then the plays that come to town during those seasons for people who like going to plays, I certainly invite them to attend some of the productions at the Shakespeare Festival because they are first rate. They are equal to Broadway.
Hmm.
Yes. And so they're different things,
What are the
that
beaches like?
oh, the beaches are great.
Yeah.
Destin, Gulf Shores, all of those along the Coast there are excellent. Destin is one of my favorite places to run away and just enjoy the beach. Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
many people go there every weekend, especially during the summer. But like I can imagine right now with the heat, people are really at the beach,
Hmm.
just trying to cool off. But
Yeah.
that's one of the favorite. That's one. In fact, I think that's one of the main reasons. A lot of visitors who are traveling through Montgomery, they're
Hmm.
headed down to the coastline, to the beaches, or to New Orleans.
Hmm.
Yes.
Okay. And what is there? Can you describe like a difference between like somebody from Mississippi versus somebody from Alabama? Like, could you meet somebody be like, oh, I know they're not from Alabama, they're from Mississippi?
Oh, that's a tough one right there because we are put in the same bag
Yeah.
so many times
And
for
no,
for
I'm asking you almost a
historical.
stereotype, but like, but is there? I guess the really the inverse of this question is more like, what is there something that kind of you would say, yeah, defines like somebody who is, from Alabama, black or white, like, or is there something that just like, yeah,
Oh, that's a good one because the histories of both of our states are so aligned. And especially when you think of the history of the Confederate history of Mississippi and the Confederate history of Alabama, and then the history of the Native Americans, for instance, who inhabited all the territory here of Alabama. That's why most of the cities are named with Native names and it's really aligned. So I'm going to say the difference is the barbecue,
ah,
Mississippi bar.
I'm gonna go to food.
Everybody say their cooking is different.
Oh yeah, what's the
Some,
difference?
I think the sauce is
Uh,
just the sauce. And you know something? Mississippi has the riverboats.
uh,
Now
uh,
we have the Harriet Two riverboat here, but Mississippi is really known for riverboat rides. Up the Mississippi, and
mm-hmm,
there's certain distinctions. Maybe I haven't visited Mississippi very often.
mm-hmm,
I went to Ruleville, where Fannie Lou Hamer lived and is buried. And let's see. Um, I also visited Emmett Till's. I visited Glendora, Mississippi, where Emmett Till was murdered, where he
mm-hmm,
was thrown off the bridge, and Sumter, where the hearing was held, and
mm-hmm,
Money, Mississippi, where the grocery store, the Bryant's grocery store, was located. And so when I went to Mississippi, it was really me educating myself too
mm-hmm.
on the civil rights history in Mississippi. And so it's very much aligned with Alabama. So I don't see as much a difference, to be honest with you, in responding to that question.
Mm-hmm.
We're all
Interesting.
still in the fight. We're all still in the work.
Mm-hmm.
For voting rights, Mississippi is still fighting for voting rights too. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. All of the issues that our legislators, and I just want to say this: the legislators that are in place right now are not representing we the people. And I'm gonna just say it as plain as I know how. They are older white men who are making these terrible decisions for we the people, and it doesn't work to the advantage of any of the people
Yeah.
because we're all just one race of people, and there's
Right.
only one history.
Yeah. It's
It's
more of a
American history, and then all history.
Yeah.
because it's all connected and tied. So that's the best I can do with that one.
Nah, well, I mean, you're definitely it seems like a beacon of I think of enlightenment, and sharing with people your love and the history of what's happened in Montgomery. So I imagine that you and anybody else doing things like what you're doing are kind of part of the, I think, the irresistible thrust of history going in the right direction.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, may we all continue to travel so that we can educate ourselves and actually visit the cultures of many people, because I think it's going to keep bringing us closer,
Yeah,
where we won't feel so distant and far away, and we'll come to understand each other better because we'll know why we do what we do the way we do it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so I guess to wrap up, can I ask, like, what gives you hope at the end of the day?
Yeah, what gives me hope is that I believe that I've been called for such a time as this to be a voice to humanity, to love and to forgive and to not take any moment for granted. Live your best life right now. And because I am taking that opportunity to make it personal for me, my own accountability, that gives me hope, because the hope is something I can do to help. And so I love every day. I try to do my best. So that gives me hope. And to have a conversation with you like this gives me hope. We need many more conversations to take place.
Well, thank you. That's beautiful, and I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you, and thank you for everything. So,
I
thank
love you,
you.
Michael. I love
I
you,
can I can't
everybody.
believe I can do that.
Be love, be light. Love is a lifestyle.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you. And thank you to all the listeners and viewers out there. May you go out and explore our country with curiosity, respect, compassion, and humility. All right. Take care. Thank you so very much, Wanda. It's been such a pleasure.
You're welcome. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.